Welcome back to the World Championship of Through the Ages 2023, Stage 5, semi-finals, so to say. One step short to the finals. And I'm back for the second game, 4-player game. This time I'm in the first position. And Genghis in the second, First of Tower in the third, Thought Science in the fourth. And I start the game with the library. I will try to do something a little different this game. I will try to make it a lot shorter and not focus that much on the micro decisions, but try to give more just an impression of the game and general. We'll mention the general strategy. Just want to change up things a little. In the end, we will see how long the video turns out to be. But yes, I will try to keep it shorter. And just let me know what you think about that style. So I start the game with the library. That's really an easy choice here. Genghis goes for frugality, cultural heritage. That is not willing to take a leader for 2. That means possibly that he's eyeing the Sun Tzu, putting his eye on Sun Tzu already, and we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. There's a Chichka. Sun Tzu Chichka is a pretty decent combination, but also Sun Tzu Barbarossa, also Sun Tzu with Isabella or even Eleanor can work very well. There is no Suez, but there is a cook. And I think Genghis is known to be an aggressive player, and I guess it's the reason why he's not taking a leader for 2 there. We can see that there's a Gandhi in the game, Dietrich. In H2, there's many different possibilities. There's Napoleon, Nobel is always pretty good in 4-player. And Robespierre can be very impactful. Many different options here. A good mix of many things. So, Genghis takes 2 yellow cards instead of a leader. It's an interesting decision, but I guess he wants Sun Tzu. We see First of Tower just taking Roman roads. It's the only wonder left in the row. Understandable decision. Stockpile and patriotism are both not that great, and he will get a wonder no matter what. And Thought Silence goes for Ashoka. Ashoka is said to be pretty decent in the 4th spot. He might have gone for Alexander or Sun Tzu in the 4th spot. It's also kind of neat to be able to mitigate the risk of losing to aggressive playstyles. And there's a lot of aggressive playstyles possible, so might have been an option. But yes, Ashoka has the reputation of being pretty good in the last spot. I don't know too much about that. I'm not a 3-player, 4-player expert, but there are some reasons to value him highly. And with all the reasons I said, I am willing to go for Sun Tzu here instead of the other leaders. I think, for example, Aristotle or Alexander, they are maybe in a vacuum a little better than Sun Tzu, but I mentioned some things, some reasons why he has a lot of value, I think, in this game. So I'm willing to take that here. Not give it to Genghis. Genghis goes for Moses and the Hanging Garden. So he prepares to have a lot of population ready to maybe copy a Sun Tzu tactic with possibly Chichka, but also possibly Barbarossa. Barbarossa Moses is not the best synergy, to be honest, because Moses wants to get population out as soon as possible, but Chichka is a good possibility for him. And Fist of the Tower goes for Alexander. It's arguably, there's 2 leaders that are arguably not perfect with Roman roads, and Cleopatra is on 2 civil actions, just for the reason that they need extra civil actions themselves to work well. But Alexander has another advantage, and we will see that in play in this game. Thought Science goes for Ashoka, goes for Acropolis, takes Coat, looks very decent, makes Ashoka work already. There is a development of warfare revealed. I am taking that, and I am willing to just pay 3 civil actions here for Shishka. Very unusual for me. I contemplated that turn very much, but I do have a tactic already. And I'm not getting these knights, but it's quite likely that I get a copy of knights or another tactic. So I'm just willing to go for Chichka here. I'm not willing to run into someone dictating the pace of the game with his military strength. I'm willing to be that one in this case. And I did seed an event. Sadly, I forgot, but I think it was Reign of Terror. Could that be? I'm not very certain. I will try to look out for the events that I seed more thoroughly, but in the end, it's not that important. As I said, I want to skip through the game a little faster, and the thing is, I'm just seeding every strength event that I see in this game. That's the plan. Being strongest, seeing strength events. I can build another stage of the library. I could have also not taken the warrior and built the philosophy, but I think I only miss out on one science and have a warrior in a game where I plan to be aggressive. So that's I'm pretty confident that's the correct decision. So we see those events drawn, and I will possibly go for border conflict next turn, but we can check that out. Gengisip goes for philosophy, right? Yes. And just populates a bunch, making use of Moses. First of Tao seeds, does not use Alexander, and here we come to see what his plan is. He just wants to play Alexander and use his strength for a while. And we can see how that works out in this game. He does take knights for 2. Interestingly, Gengisip was not willing to pay 2 civil actions for knights. So yeah, he had better things to do, apparently. I would not have been able to fix corruption otherwise. I'm not too certain. We see Todd Silence building a philosophy, taking the 3rd color, so Ashoka is working quite well. He has Michelangelo, and I'm not too certain how strong Michelangelo can be here in this game. So he does pay a price for this income. He could have also taken printing press, but that's almost definitely a dead card. And yeah, of course, Michelangelo, he can play Ashoka for quite a long while and use Michelangelo as a transitional leader where he just saves up some civil actions for taking 1 or even 2 wonders. He will have a good rock situation. And I'm interestingly not seeding right now, possibly because I'm not having knights yet, so I'm undecided yet what will be best. And the trade route agreements apparently is just a good possibility for me. I do have some food lying around, and it basically means I have more rock income. First of all, I was willing to accept that. I'm rarely willing to accept that pact, but he does have Roman roads. I mean, with the other side around, but he does have Roman roads. He does have a lot of rocks, and it kind of fits his turn if he wants to populate, get the population out. I can understand why he accepts it. That's why I also offered it to him. I am willing to take Alchemy. I think it's a super good card in 4-player. And just finish the Wonder. Don't play Sishka yet. Makes no sense. Have no reason for that. We do see the somewhat anti-synergy of having taken Moses. He just goes for Barbarossa here. I mean, of course, there was the chance with Moses that he has a lot of population and get Chishka. But yeah, he does get Barbarossa. It's a little anti-synergy because Moses wanted to populate, or had to populate even a little extra to get out of corruption. And now we have Barbarossa. So in hindsight, I guess he would have wished to have an Alexander instead of a Moses. Does reveal a fighting band, interestingly, which I think honestly is just a misplay because I haven't shown a tactic yet. Okay, let's not phrase it that strongly. I do have Sun Tzu, and it is super unlikely that I'm not getting a tactic, but there is a possibility, and I'm not certain what the advantage is of seeding or showing the tactic. Then again, I don't know his cards. So, okay, I take it back. It's a little overphrased to say it's a misplay, but generally you don't want to play tactics with Chishka in the game, but that might be an exception here. takes irrigation, takes cartography, interestingly, but he also doesn't have a lot better options. He could not take irrigation and go for EG, for example. But I think he's preparing just to contend a possible colony plan by me, or also just possible strength related things. Irrigation is super good with Barbarossa and the Hanging Gardens, so totally understandable. Everything. First of Dao seeds, builds the Roman roads, and reveals the medieval army. Also, yeah, after the first one, the second one willing to show a tactic, but after the first one, it's reasonable anyway. And I'm super happy that Todd Science decides not to take knights for 3. I don't know if he had a good chance for doing that. And he also sees that there is a fighting band. He will be able to build swordsmen. I think paying 3 civil actions here would always have been a huge corruption disaster. So definitely understandable, but yeah, I'm happy that he doesn't. That means I can see it. I'm not sure. I'm again not entirely certain what I seeded. Maybe I seeded. I don't know. You have to check it out. Rewind a little. I'm not entirely certain, but I still have the border conflict. Maybe I preferred science income. But as we see, I am willing to pay 2 civil actions for the knight. The pact works out pretty nicely for me. I have exactly enough rocks and food, exactly enough resource basically to build 2 knights. And now I think that's a super good situation here for me. That's the dream scenario for Chishka. Yes, I have not developed any economy yet, but none of them will be able to develop economy, or they will have to be afraid of getting hit by me. Sadly, I have not drawn an aggression yet, but they don't know that. And just a small comparison to one-on-one. I think in one-on-one it's even strong being in this situation. But in one-on-one, you can actually choose to kind of ignore the strength push and just build up economy. And worst case, you lose maybe 2 aggressions. I have an interesting Pulse game uploaded recently where I lose literally 4 aggressions in H1 and I win the game quite easily in the end. That's just something that's possible. But in 4-player, it's not. And the reason is that some people will decide to also go along with the strength phase. And then if you decide to not go along, then you eat events from 3 other people plus possible aggressions from 3 other people. So that's really not an option in 4-player. You cannot ignore the strength push. Maybe actually the correct meta would be that they all ignore it and just build up their economy, but that's not what's happening in these games. And I'm not entirely certain if that would be correct. So yeah, so I set up to dominate strength-wise. We will see they find ways to contest that. And I also am very happy to take this Taj Mahal because that's kind of the strategy to go for. I have a leader that gives me strength and culture income. And now I will have time to just ride on this culture income, build up my economy, and yeah, just turn out to be ahead of everyone in 6 turns or so, because everything will be equal, but I will have 50 culture more. That's at least the plan. Let's see how that works out. And yeah, basically we now see everyone doing as much as they can to get stronger. We see Genghis Sip using Barbarossa. He has a very good leader to deal with such a situation, obviously. And if he gets knights at some point, he can go for this tactic and also be very strong. He has a good wonder for that, a good leader for that. Does have irrigation. Interestingly, he goes for this at once. So I don't know if that's correct. If it wouldn't be more wise to start with economy and then going for strength. I mean, if I had an aggression, I knew he could not defend with this. So that cannot be a reason for going for this now. yeah, I don't know. Maybe it would be more wise to start with irrigation and then start building swordsmen, possibly. That's kind of hard to say. We see first of Dao being able to go to 14 strength himself, thanks to Alexander. A lot of impact here by Alexander. Todd Silence draws development of politics, and here I hope to draw an aggression, but I don't. Sadly, I don't have an aggression. That's the one of the rare cases where I would like to have an aggression in hand, but I don't. It happens. He goes for the warfare and builds swordsman, basically does everything to get stronger, but can only go to 8 strength. But actually, 10, 12, 14, he might even defend with his 3 MA, but we know for certain that Genghis couldn't. But as I said, it's kind of, it doesn't matter too much. I mean, it matters in the sense that I understand that he does everything he can to defend, because he could defend, and that's why it's also reasonable to skip developing economy instead and going for the strength. I cede. I am not willing to cede the border conflict again. I am kind of torn on this in hindsight. I think my reasoning is that in Indian Genghis can win this if he gets knights. I guess he's in a good position with Barbarossa, and I am kind of ahead, and I'm not willing to potentially give 3 rocks to someone. I guess that's my reasoning. I'm not entirely certain, but I think I decided to play more neutral events in a situation where I feel like I am ahead anyway, and I cannot say 100% certain that I win this. I am not planning to get stronger than this, and yeah, I'm just starting to build this Taj Mahal, taking iron and theology as a happiness solution. And it's pretty nice that Genghis actually still has this wonder unbuilt and cannot go for castle. I think castle is super good in this game. And goes for more swordsman. Now he is able to defend, obviously. Does take monarchy in hand for the crucial last military action. Interestingly, goes for bread and circus before hanging gardens. But I think we do see that it looks reasonable. And this is actually something that you don't see too often. First of all, does have an aggression, and he kidnaps a leader. That you don't see too often, because usually if you take a leader, you replace it. But we see the leader being kidnapped, and that means I actually wasn't too certain about this, that Todd Silence cannot take another leader. I think if I remember correctly, if you kidnap a technology like iron, the other player can still go for another copy of that technology. But I'm not 100% certain. My memory says that it happened sometime, but I'm not 100% certain, as I said. And then it's a little maybe weird that you can take another copy of the same technology, but not another leader. But they told me it's not possible, and that means that's a huge impact of this aggression. You rarely see it having a huge impact, but here, if it means he cannot elect another leader, it's huge. It means basically stealing at least one civil action for the leader replacement, and in this case, a lot of more civil actions for taking some wonders. And just goes for reasonable turns. We see open borders agreement between Todd Silence and Genghis. We all love to see that, don't we? What a lovely pact. It's a lot better for Genghis right now, but he would have gone for the third military action with the revolution very likely anyway, so I can understand why he offers that. I see it still not choosing to go for border conflict, reveal cultural influence, and just go for the iron upgrade. This time I prefer to go for economy before finishing the wonder. I must have had some reasons last turn. Maybe I didn't even have signs for iron, where I built 2 stages of this. This time I think want to build up my economy. That should be better than 1 time 3 culture. Next turn, I can decide whether I want to upgrade twice or build it and upgrade once with a rich land. Many options. Raiders is revealed. And we see, as I said, I won't go too much into detail. Basically, what's happening is everyone is trying as much as they can to survive, while everyone has to kind of neglect their economy. And that's just what we see. No economy, no economy, no economy. And I can start to go for economy. And we will see how they can fix their economy situations. I mean, all this while Crusades, they do help for this entire game plan, while I just produce culture and no one else does. I go for an iron upgrade. I choose to finish the wonder here and take an urban growth as my last civil action. Scientific breakthrough revealed. We see the revolution. Genghis is willing to lose his Hanging Gardens. Does have another happiness solution, obviously. Immigration revealed. Genghis wins that. That's pretty impactful for him. We see iron here. And Michelangelo going to work, saving some civil actions to pick up the Forbidden City. We see a inhabited territory revealed, and Genghis is, I mean, yeah, Todd Silence is willing to bid 5, and Genghis is only willing to bid 4, and 4 is 1 swordsman, and it's interesting. I think bidding on colonies is one of the super strengths of Barbarossa. But, well, he will have some reasons for not bidding 2. Possibly that he could not even defend an aggression if he did that. That might be sufficient reason for only bidding 1 swordsman. And we see Todd Silence gets it for 1 swordsman. That's pretty good for him. He did have 3 colonization cards. Goes for Call of Law and starts bidding the alchemy. Reign of Terror revealed. I think that's an event that I seeded. Todd Silence at the bad end of that event. And to pick up a theme of the last video also, I think playing in 4th position is just such a disadvantage. And we see this game as a perfect example for that. I think there's not many things he could have done to prevent being in almost a lost position already. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but after having lost that aggression and this Reign of Terror is super impactful, and there could have been even more strength events, which he could have done nothing about. And being in 4th position is not good in a 4-player game. I can still take Universitas here. I'm pretty happy about that. It will add a little to my culture advantage gain, but more importantly, obviously, the 2 signs per turn look super good with a lack of population, and I do have alchemy in hand and can possibly go for that at some point, but I'm super happy to get a good wonder here. Missing out possibly on those H2 wonders. They also look good, but for example, Harvard, it's only 1 science better, and it, of course, has this other advantage of being able to play yellow cards. But I think Universitas here is still very impactful, very good. I'm glad to be able to pick that up. And we see historic territory revealed. Interestingly, no one is willing to bid on that, except Pot Silence. Not sure if that's can be considered a misplay. I don't know. Too complicated for me to answer. We see Iron upgraded, building some of the Wonder, Knights in hands. Pot Silence is happy to take a leader. Kinda, yeah, in a sense, a little lucky that a leader dropped very early on. And especially Newton, I think, is a super good option for him. Improving his science and civil action situation. He has this food income situation, which I don't really like. And let's see how we can improve that. Dark Age is revealed. I lose 0 science. Happy with that. Yeah, I'm not entirely certain if I had information about that. Possibly I did, but willing to finish the Wonder, upgrade Iron, and take Architecture in hand. I value this quite highly. This card. Reds revealed. Again, on the good end of that. Again, not quite certain if I had the information. And here we do see that Gangsip is able to go for the Phalanx, the improved one. Switch to Nobel, who is improving his science income by 100%. So Nobel, after having used Barbarossa very efficiently, is a super good option here. And yeah, his situation is not bad. He does have some food income. He doesn't not have the best rock income, but he has Richland in hand, science income to go for coal. And I think it looks all reasonable. But if we compare, I just have 40 more culture and 7 culture income, and my situation isn't a lot better, a lot worse. He's somewhat stronger now, but as I said, I anticipated that I'm not going to be able to stay stronger forever, and that's where I didn't play, for example, the border conflict. That would, I think we see that it's correct. If it was here in the back, he would just be able to win that now, and it would be super impactful for his civilization, just to get these 3 extra rocks. See, Fist of Tao revealing a territory. I'm willing to bid for that. I have some colonization cards. I think it's a super good territory. And sending a knight, because I can just rebuild it and still keep the other colonization card. Finishes Forbidden City, takes selective breeding. It's not willing to go for any of those leaders. That's very understandable. Knowledge of the Ancients, again, a very good one for me. And Genghis misses out on science entirely. So pretty certain I remember that I didn't seed that. But very reasonable decision from anyone to seed that if someone has no Wonder in hand. And we see Todd Silence. Developing theocracy, making use of the Acropolis, and also Newton getting the civil action back. So that's a super good option for him. Takes cavalryman, takes selective breeding, and builds back the farm. I go for theology, take just reserves for 3. Interestingly, yeah, I don't want to be too greedy, don't need journalism opera. I think just having the option to possibly yeah, populate with the reserves was the reason why I went for that. And yeah, just don't want to be greedy in this situation. I think I need to play in a way where I can defend from possible strength pushes, because I think yeah, his path to victory would be warring me. So no need to take my beloved journalism or opera. And in hindsight, I mean, I don't remember correctly what the alternative to architecture was, but maybe the architecture was even a little awkward in that regard. Well, we will see. Maybe it will do something in the future. We see Genghis being able to enslave first of Dao. That's actually interesting. And also quite impactful. It means he can also go for another. I mean, he could have done it anyway, but yeah, it's just super good, obviously. First of Dao loses a population, rebellion is revealed, and he loses. What did he destroy? It was 3. No, I destroyed the lab. That's where the information is that I was searching. Yeah. Bit selective breeding. Yeah, all of a sudden, kind of bad bot, since Genghis just escalated in strength, but that was to be expected. Todd Silence is able to go for Cavalryman and copy the improved phalanx. I can start building cannons now. I, yeah, kind of have drawn the nuts of a tactic here. Well, arguably, maybe classical army would be even better for myself, but then again, with this, not so good. I think being able to go for fortifications is pretty good. So I'm even willing to destroy a philosophy, build a cannon, and basically yeah, it's not a bluff, but the situation is, but it's a kind of interesting situation. I can defend with 2 defense cards with this, and he knows for a fact that he cannot defend, and yeah, here he could also defend. So if he has an aggression, then it's an interesting question whether you should target me or him. And I think it's the question whether he wants to still go for first place or settles for second. If he wants to go for first place, I think he has to risk aggressing me and hope that I can't defend. And yeah, in the other case where he goes here, I think he's settling for second, but not necessarily the distinction is true. So it's still gonna be interesting whether he tries or not. As we see, I couldn't defend, and he goes for the safe plunder. Yeah, I think if he plundered me here, he had a good chance of still beating me, but he chose to plunder first of Dao, and like that, I'm kind of confident that he cannot catch up to me. Yeah, let's see. Goes for a statue. His problem actually is rocks, but there's no coal here, and yeah, he's willing to go for a statue. I mean, it does make sense, right? Irrigation with statue, I think it's a good combination. He will have yellow bank issues soon, and he can finish it next turn, right? It's 7-5. It's 7-5, yes. First of Dao takes Rifleman for free, very understandable. Takes it, upgrades it. His biggest problem is military actions, so might also consider taking Conmon to prepare a revolution. But I think he calculated that if he does this, it might be that he eats another aggression, but then he can upgrade this and be able to defend, possibly. So that was his way of going about this. And Foray revealed Genghis, I win those resources. I think they are better for Genghis, but yeah, still good to be part of that, obviously. Ravages of Time revealed. And I'm choosing to crumble the Taj Mahal here. It's a difference of 2 culture income, which is kinda, there's a lot, but I think the science income is more important at this stage, since I'm also going for this Conmon right now, and I would be on +2 science income. I would not be able to go for selective breeding next turn, so I made that decision, and I'm pretty confident that this is correct. I can go for Napoleon here, a super good leader for my game plan, just to stay ahead in strength. Can even get rid of corruption, build another cannon, and yeah, I'm looking super safe here. Genghis reveals the economic progress, can build the statue, and still has 6 rocks left thanks to the foray and economic progress, and goes for the Harvard College. I think that's an interesting decision. I'm not a huge fan of late H2 wonders, and his biggest problem is rock income, but maybe yeah, maybe it's the correct. He can take the engineering genius. It is in a good synergy with Nobel and possible Nobel prizes, and basically his science income is actually pretty bad without Nobel, so yeah, maybe this is correct. Goes for another knight. Sadly, I know there has been a classical army revealed, so he has a lot of strength potential here with this and possible air forces, so I do have to watch out about that, about his strength potential. First of Dao now upgrades the rifleman, and also we didn't see another aggression, right? Yeah, he played an event. He possibly didn't have it, so he's able to upgrade the rifleman and now possibly be able to defend with 1 colonization card, 1 defense card in hand. Builds another philosophy, even is willing to spend the H2 military action to upgrade once more. International agreement, pact between those two. Classical army, adaptation. Yeah, I can take Reverdy for 3. I have a lot of civil actions. Science is the biggest problem. And I'm willing to show the fortifications. They are all set up for a classical army anyway. And here I did draw an international tourism. Gangster is going for a war over technology, and yeah, he can basically get the strategy out, get to 40 strength with the 2 classical armies, and there's not a lot that Todd Silence can do about that. Might even consider to resign here, to be honest. I would actually consider it possibly just to teach that guy a lesson for the future, not to war me like that. But obviously also understandable to keep on playing. He has a shot of ending 3rd place, possibly, so yeah. It's actually close here, but I mean, rock-wise at least, could almost build the 2nd classical army. I offer international tourism to First of Dao. This spec's also bonkers crazy. Just gives us, yeah, I mean, I'm even willing to give 3 culture income versus for 2. I would also offer it to Todd Silence, but he only has 1 wonder. I'm pretty confident that he accepts it. There's literally no reason to not accept it in his position. And yeah, this political action is worth what? 30 culture or something? Yeah, maybe not that much, but it's bonkers how much it's worth. Yes. please, 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 some reworks of how pacts work. Because sadly, I mean, pacts are interesting, but I think they are pretty horribly balanced, and there are too many no-brainer pacts that you always have to offer and to accept when they are offered, and that's not an interesting game mechanic, sadly. This pact, honestly, I guess it's even one of the worst defenders. Like, it's just what is it? Like 6 turns left, 5 or 6 activations. So like 18 culture versus Gengisip. Or it's 12 for me, but 18 for First of Dao versus Gengisip and Tot Science, and yeah. It can easily be 18 also for me if he had Third Wonder. So, Pulse of War. Very good for him. He's willing to play an aggression against First of Dao here. And goes for computers. And Bill Gates possibly, yes, pretty good combination. Is not willing, or he didn't have the civil actions to swap the leader. But he can also just do it next turn and start gaining the Nobel Prizes. Possibly next turn already. We see First of Dao finding a way to defend with the Wonder. Manhattan Project. Wealthy Territory revealed. Gengisip is winning that for 1 swordsman. That's nice for him. And Todd Silence, yeah, basically, I think he lost the game when he lost this war like that. And yeah, again, possibly a possible resignation. But yeah, we will see. Maybe it's closer than I think at this point. I actually don't remember that well how it ended here. Strategic territory revealed. I can basically just build my knight away. I have a better tactic. The territory is super nice in H3, obviously. And here I decide that I am willing to be a little greedy and just go for the grab the multimedia. Yeah, it's not that greedy. I mean, I do build a cannon, but I want to be able. I mean, I'm only 60 culture ahead, and yes, war is a possibility for him, but he can also just still produce a ton of culture with impacts, and also just if I left the multimedia for him, he could start building that now, and that's why I was willing to spend 3 civil actions on that, just to have options for the future. I think all my turns now are to create as many options as possible for my future turns, which is always yeah, possible thanks to having a lot of civil actions. And I guess one of those options that I want to keep is just making it the war plan, the possible war plan even harder by taking Gandhi in hand. He does have only 5 military actions right now. He already has a strategy, so military theory doesn't solve the issue entirely, at least. And yeah, it would only be possible with communism or fundamentalism. But yeah, I think it's still just a super good option to take him in hand here. And I didn't play him because I didn't want to get weakest, and also possibly First of Dao could infiltrate him, actually. Gengisip is going for democracy for 3 civil actions here, so he even develops it. So this actually means he doesn't have the best war options anymore. If he went for communism, I had to be afraid of that somewhat. But also he doesn't have air forces yet. And it might be that he just already decided to go for 2nd place here. I'm not entirely certain if he thinks that he can catch up the culture here, but I'm pretty confident from my perspective that with the engineering and multimedia in hand, that I can, even if he decides to go all in on culture and economy and developments, that I can contest that with the cards I have in hand. does rebuild the classical army to put some pressure already. First of Dao's biggest hobby in the game, declaring aggressions against me. I can defend that. It goes for oil. That's interesting. That's cool. His biggest issue is science, but there's no multimedia in hand, no in the row, no computers in the row. So he goes for oil. Possibly Curie. Is that the plan? Yeah, Curie looks super good for him. I like the oil. Civil unrest revealed. We see Air Force roulette. One goes to Todd Silence. He has to take it, obviously. Yeah. Could have taken or considered communism, possibly for a revolution, but not too much. I built a cannon to, again, be able to defend aggressions, this time I know that I can defend aggressions against anyone with Gandhi in hand, or let's see. The only aggression I'm really afraid of is infiltrate, but well, he can only plunder me, and only if he decides to play an aggression to enable him to plunder me. There is again this metagame reason where I think that he has no incentive of playing an aggression against me to enable them to play an aggression. And he also, oh no, he actually cannot literally aggress me. That's 3 extra civil actions, right? And he could play possibly a plunder. Actually, maybe I'm still doing something to get a little stronger. I'm not entirely certain. But I'm not. I don't know. Maybe it's a small misplay. I can even draw another card. I mean, I know I can defend one aggression and then it's kind of unlikely for anyone to try an aggression on me, I guess. Gangster even goes for the international agreements. Gets another computer out. And we see a communism revolution quite late into the game. Not too certain about this one, but possibly correct. Goes for Marie Curie. Todd Silence takes democracy in hand. Takes computers, develops computers for a Nobel Prize, and interestingly, I don't know if he didn't see it, if he didn't care anymore, which would be a little awkward in a World Championship game if he thought it is his only chance to do something by being greedy now. But interestingly, he didn't decide to keep enough science for Air Forces. And let's see if that gets punished. Iconoclasm hits him. Everything went against him in this game, kinda. We see I decide to go for architecture and multimedia instead of engineering with the rev idea. I think I don't remember exactly what the reason was, but yeah, this basically means I have 18 science next turn for another Nobel Prize. It was a little awkward to go for architecture into engineering for planning that, but I think I calculated a lot and saw that it was still the best option. And we see a war over culture and 2 air forces. Todd Silence not being able to defend that at all because he has no science for air forces. Popularization of science revealed. This is super good for Genghis. Empire State building build. By First of Dao for, what did he gain by that? 18 culture, interestingly. Autonomous territory revealed. Genghis can't really bid on that, and yeah, my reasoning for bidding on that, I was considering to leave it or to not bid, and to hope that Todd Silence gets it and is thus able to defend the war better. But I thought if I don't bid for it, then most likely first of Tower wins it, and that's what happened. So I won it. I was willing to bid Cannon and Knight. I think at this point I'm kind of certain that I would still be able to defend aggression. I'm not entirely certain, but I have military build-up, patriotism. Or possibly I know that I can never defend an aggression against him. But maybe that's not anything he wants to do anyway. Yeah. Quarter revealed builds to cavalrymen's maximum he can do. I do go for tanks engineering and just build a multimedia. Do build one tank, but I'm willing to yeah, eat possibly even 3 aggressions. And at this point I'm 100 culture ahead. He cannot build Wonder anymore. Internet gone. And Hollywood does nothing. So even with a lot of good impacts, and not a lot of impacts have been played, or okay, it's 6, but even if there was, I think they were all played by Todd Silence actually. He didn't play any, so yeah, I think even with very good impacts for him, it's pretty unlikely that he can make up 100 culture. Okay, now it's only 70 or something. I was a little afraid that this war could still help him to get the help of me, but it's still, yeah, it's still 70 culture. And I'm also prepared quite well for impacts in general, for impact of culture. Science, I'm second. I have a good balance, I have good harmony, and so on. So. Impact of Wonders revealed. And yeah, it's basically, at first glance, it looks a little close between those two, but to be honest, Genghis is so much better prepared for impacts that I think we can already see, also with the Bill Gates points at the end, that he will end up second. And it's more close between us, possibly even than between them. But let's see the end result. And Todd Science is just, yeah, I think it's the 4th position. Maybe 1 or 2 wrong decisions. I mean, obviously, every player is guilty of playing not perfect. And could argue that with perfect play he could do something, but in my impression, yeah, this being in 4th position in a 4-player game can be, especially if people are willing to play this aggressive playstyle, then yeah, it can feel quite horrible. Impact of population, impact of technology, which should be pretty good for Genghis. Possibly that's the one impact that he seeded in the end. Variety colonies 9306. Impact of culture. I'm not certain if I seeded that or someone else. And we see in the end it is 40 culture still, a little closer between those than between me and Genghis. Yeah, so as I said, I try to make this video a little shorter. Just to recap the strategy, I think it's a pretty valid strategy, is to, and that's where Jin Jan Chichka shines, creating this strength advantage where everyone else cannot go for economy, and then kinda everything is equal, but you end up having 50 culture more than the others. And obviously Gandhi helps in such a game, but ultimately I would also have ways to win this game without Gandhi. It was just an extra, I would say. And yeah, as unwinnable as the first game felt in fourth position, as easy this game felt. It played itself more or less, I would say. I feel like, at least that's my impression. Maybe people see that differently. I'm interested to hear the opinion of seating importance from you guys. And yeah, I don't say it's unwinnable in fourth slot, or that you always easily win in first slot, obviously. But I do think being seated 2 and 3 is, in such a constellation, actually a pretty big advantage versus being seated in 1 and 4. Because it's easier to... Yeah, there are reasons, statistical reasons for that. I will not try to explain them. That's what my impression, at least. And yeah, let me know what you think about this little rushed review. I mean, yeah, some aspects I didn't catch, obviously, but also maybe I saved some of your time watching this, and I still show you the game so that you, yeah, that I hopefully can show you every game. I ultimately think this game wasn't too interesting. And the only interesting aspect of the game, or really interesting aspect of the game, was the strategical aspect of yeah, the general strategy that I approached. I think it is a good strategy overall. It can work quite well. But it depends, obviously, also on a lot of factors. So that's been the second game. That means the standings that I didn't do screenshots of is that I have 6 points after 2 games, and Genghis has 9 points. He ended first and second, so I'm 3 points behind. And that basically already means I need a really strong performance in the rest of the tournament in order to be able to catch up, or I need to hope that he loses some points somewhere along the way versus first of the or Todd Silence. And yeah, let's see if that's something I'm capable of doing. I already felt like it could come down to my one-on-one against Genghis, and I'm actually kind of confident that I can win that. But we will see about that. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about this quicker review and what you think about the game. And yeah, see you in the next one, hopefully. Bye-bye.